Hello, my peri and postmenopausers. Welcome back. Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about the thing that probably gets many of us the most frustrated, and that is we're gaining weight in places that you are not accustomed to, or you feel like, Jesus, I have gotten into this peri and postmenopause stage and I'm just gaining weight, gaining weight, gaining weight. And it feels like the only reason why is due to peri or postmenopause. But the thing is, that's actually not true. There are a lot of reasons why someone can be gaining weight. There are things that can contribute to it, but it also is a signal of metabolic things changing in your body and not just lowering of hormones. There's a few things that can be going on at one time. And it's so important that we don't just relegate it to menopause and hormone changes, because some of those differences actually can be telling you that there are things that you need to do differently that actually have nothing to do with hormone changes, right? So let's talk about some of the things that actually can be going on. First thing is, many people think my metabolism is just broken. It is not working. But the fact is, it's not that it's broken. It's just different, right? Because as we do get a little bit older, our activity changes. The way we move our body may be different. The lifestyle you lead literally is a little different than maybe what you may have done years prior. Your daily activity might be different, but it also is signs of metabolic health might be different. And when I say that, it means the way you digest food, the way your body processes food. These are things that can be different. So it's not that metabolism is broken. It's just maybe slightly different. Metabolism is that piece that is part of regulation of your body. It's how you use energy. And some of you may be thinking, gosh, I've really never had trouble with weight ever. And a few of you may be saying, man, I've struggled with weight my entire life. That is a difference in how your body uses energy. And so that's where you can sometimes see some people who are always slim no matter what they eat. And then some people who feel like, I'm always heavy no matter what I do, no matter what I diet, It's the way that a body uses energy and that balance of it. And so it's so important that you understand that even those people who may be very slim and feel like, it has always, been easy. Everybody has that moment when the tip, right? The ship, it's going to turn a little bit and things get different. And we have to be very mindful because health concerns are still happening, even though you think outwardly, I'm not necessarily seeing it. Okay. But now let's stick to topic. So you're starting to see weight gain, and this is for anybody. My 115 pounders to my 250 pounders. You're starting to see, oh my God, I'm seeing this weight show up through my hip. I'm seeing my boobs get so much bigger, my arms, the top of my back, my belly. Gosh, it just looks different. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that can be going on. Number one, just that normal energy balance. And so what that is, let's say when you were 30, your energy balance, or what we call that homeostasis, or that kind of set point for you as far as output, right? As far as how much energy you need to sustain your body to be able to do all the things you need to do, that number is actually lowering. And what happens is over time, especially if you've been somebody who is chronically dieting on and off, you sometimes just don't really know what is that homeostasis level of kind of like what we sometimes go call maintenance level. And you don't know what that is because you are constantly going backwards and forwards on weight, but also in calories. But what's happening is you may be starting to see that, let's say back then, your set point for weight maintenance could have been, 1600, but now it's actually 1500, but you're still floating to that same 1600 that you always used to, even though you're dieting in between, kind of this on off. And so you keep floating above it, and maybe the weekend may go above it and certain days of the week. And then you end up from a weight standpoint going over. And then some of you who have been very slim your entire life, you're now starting to see, wait a second. I've always eaten a certain way. You had trouble and now I'm not really sure what to do, because you've kind of always had that free reign to just do whatever you want. But same for you, that set point is lowering. And the only way that we start to raise that set point is some other things have to change in order to push that number back up. Also at this stage, you're starting to see what we call thermogenesis. It's the ability of your body to produce heat. Some of you may have moments where you're producing too much heat, right? And you're getting hot flash. And then you're also producing not enough. So it's not stable. And so you're seeing these spikes and lows, but that also is those spikes and lows are happening. So it means that you're not consistently kind of burning at that same rate that you always used to all day long. Then that next thing is a little bit of insulin sensitivity. And this one is tricky because it's not a diabetic thing. It's not a pre-diabetic thing, but it is your body's ability to process sugar. And depending on who you are, it can be processing starches or processing glucose, which is going to be sugary items. Some of you literally it's only starches, and then some of you it's both, and then some of you it's just sugary items, and more or less more like candy, sweets, things that are made with sugar. You have to be very, very specific, and we got to kind of work through that, because this is when you can start to see weight gain, because you're not able to work through that as quickly. And then some of that is meal timing around when do we eat certain things to give you the best opportunity to use it. The next thing is a lot more fat on your body. And for ladies, this can be very challenging, because at higher levels of body fat, if you're someone who's always carried a little bit more body fat, and again, this is not anything to do with the scale. This literally means you've always had higher levels of body fat because you have decreased levels of muscle mass, meaning you are not somebody who's strength trained on a regular basis. You typically have higher levels of body fat, whether you weigh 115 pounds or 250 pounds. You have higher levels of body fat inside of your body. And some of you who are very small, if you don't strength train, you can read very high on body fat scales, because you also have lower weight of skeleton. Your skeleton isn't as heavy, okay? So you can have higher levels of body fat unknowingly. But when that happens, it also means that the way you metabolize, the way your body can heat up and burn is very different, because you have more fat under that skin. And it will change the way that your body triggers as estrogen is lowering. That is a different type of trigger. So you won't get to the extreme levels of heat that you would normally be building. You won't do that process that you heard me say earlier, thermogenesis. It won't work as efficiently. You won't have that same brain to body cueing to tell your body to speed up and do the things that it needs to do. So you can find yourself gaining weight because you have extra body fat in the first place. The next thing is your body's is called lipolysis, and that is the body's ability to use body fat as energy. That is something that is available to a body, right? And so sometimes you hear people say, I'm gonna work out in a fasted state, I'm gonna do all these things. But the problem is, again, the cueing. Sometimes that trigger is not the same as we age, and it's not telling your body, let me get to these reserves. So you're never in that state. So the only thing that you're ever really using is your reserve of glucose, which, believe it or not, is very short. So that's why many of you can always feel fatigued. You can feel like, gosh, I'm just working really hard and it's just not, I'm not going anywhere. It's not happening. And so you have to be very mindful of that. And you have to start to look at, what does your body need to be able to start to respond a little bit better. But here's some other reasons why you can feel like you're gaining weight or just things aren't the same. And also is high blood pressure. When you have high blood pressure, you want to talk about something that is causing major dysregulation. That's what I'm going to call that, right? I'm going to use that as a word right now. But it will impact how your body functions and performs, because you need to be able to regulate pressure in your body to be able to have higher levels of intensity, so that your body can even get to the point where it can start to use that reserve fat, right, that we talked about. But it also, you need it so that you can sustain the energy for long enough periods of time to do the things that you need to do. And oftentimes for people who have high blood pressure, it's not there. And you think about the medicine involved. Remember, the medicine involved trying to lower the rate at which blood is flowing so that your pressure doesn't rise. But consequently, guess what it also does? It stops you from it slows down your ability to get to those higher levels of intensity, because it has suppressed your body. Now it's a catch-22, because if you hadn't been taking that medication, if you didn't have high blood pressure and you weren't taking that medication, or if you had high blood pressure and not taking that medication, it could skyrocket and you got a problem. But the medicine is helping you not get to those levels where you might end up in a hospital, all right? So it's a catch-22. So we have to find the right balance of you being able to work that heart as a muscle, right? Really being able to work it and gradually building up that strength and really clearing those walls out so that you can push the intensity, but then also it gradually will lower your pressure. And so then you don't have to need those meds anymore, right? But that is definitely another way and another reason. The other part is when you have very low, good cholesterol. That HDL, when it is low, that is another way to produce energy. That is another way that we're able to use something to help us. But when yours is low, that's another reason why you can see the inability to metabolize faster and move through things faster. recover faster because you don't have that other part of that good cholesterol, which is that energy to help you recover, to help you move and do things. It's not just to help your bad cholesterol be good. There is purpose behind it because a body needs cholesterol to do a lot of processes. And when yours is too low, you can have issues. All right. And so for many of my brown folks many of my people who, and I'm just saying color brown, not that you have to be African American, but many of you who are brown physically in shade, brown to dark, you can see varying degrees of, that good cholesterol, but it also has to do with your vitamin D. And that's why it's so important that those of you who are on the lower end of vitamin D, that you take that supplement on a regular basis because you are not able to absorb vitamin D the same from the sun and your food. And so you need to make sure that you take that vitamin D because that is also how you will be able to process cholesterol and have better levels of your good cholesterol and flush bad. Very, very important. All right. So now that's a little bit about how we end up with differing levels of metabolism, but we call it kind of metabolic syndrome. There's a multitude of things that can be happening that can be interfering with how your body metabolizes or uses energy. The next thing that when we talk about body weight and you feeling like, Jesus, I am gaining weight, is just body composition. So you heard me start to talk a little bit about that body fat. This one is really tricky, and especially in our age range. People who are much younger, meaning in their 30s, 20s at this point, we're talking about this a lot more. So they have a better view, they have better context of scale weight, BMI, body fat percent. But women who are older, meaning women who are 60 plus, that was a thing, like they never even heard of that. If you say body fat, they'll say, oh, BMI. They never talked about that. That is not anything that they have looked at unless they are an avid gym goer. But in that age range, that is not a typical conversation until they are working with a trainer, until they're in a doctor's office or in a facility that is discussing body fat and metabolic health and muscle tone, sarcopenia, osteoporosis, osteopenia, body fat percent, right? Lean body muscle mass. If they're in that type of facility, then they're going to hear it. Those of you in that, let's say 38 to 55 age range, you've heard about it before. And unless you have been an avid gym goer, it may be something you heard, but it may not necessarily be anything you have ever found out what yours was. So we got a gamut of people here. We're going to have those of you who absolutely know, yep, I had a couple scans before, love it, or ooh, it's not looking that great, or I'm seeing it deteriorate, or the rest of you are like, yeah, I've heard of that before, I understand it, but I've never had a scan. Body fat is the other part of metabolism, and people who have more muscles on their body metabolize better. Think about when you guys were young and the people who were athletes, the people who genetically just look like, oh, they've got more muscles on their body, and y'all all know what that looks like. When you are 15 and you know the difference between somebody who naturally has a better muscle structure to their body genetically, right? We all understand what that looks like. Translate that to adults. Translate that to people who are getting older. When somebody's young, think about it. They're never tired. They're stronger. They're faster, quicker, everything. Translate that now to someone who is in that age range that I just said, 38 to say 55 or so, close to 60. Somebody who has more muscle mass, it's no different. You're going to have the same type of response, but in relative to your age range, right? And relative to this group, you'll be faster, stronger, you'll be healthier, you'll have better metabolics, better metabolism, better blood pressure, better cholesterol, better hormone control. These are the things that help you work through and also manage weight, is body fat percentage. And when yours is higher, it does not matter your scale weight, my ladies. If that body fat percent is too high, you're going to see the gamut of problems. You are going to be the individuals who can have major heart palpitations, the high cholesterol, the high pressure, prediabetes, diabetes, major night sweats. You can be the ones with vertigo, the crawly itchies, the numbness, the body aches, the shoulder hurt, the frozen shoulder, all of these things, right? You can be someone who just may experience it slightly at a different level because you have additional body fat, but also that additional body fat triggers and more body fat. Does that make sense? At higher levels, it's it's like you got to understand that body is always sending out signals. And as our signals are dropping, meaning the relationship between testosterone, sometimes you'll just see it as FSH, but then also between your estrogen or estradiol is really what we're talking, and then progesterone. As those hormones flip in relationship and progesterone and estradiol are lowering, you're going to see that body signaling in different cueing. So you will see fat show up now in different places. So you will automatically feel like, man, I'm really gaining weight. And it's not necessarily that maybe sometimes you're gaining weight, but what you're seeing is the distribution of weight be completely different, because you're going to start to coagulate fat in places that you may not have necessarily before. It's because the relationship has shifted and now testosterone is picking up like a man. Now, what you would be surprised, ladies, is that, believe it or not, in this same age range, men pick up weight at the same rate. Can you believe that? They do. But the difference is placement and the way that they carry it. You don't always notice it the same way because there's so much attention drawn to women's bodies that somehow men, it doesn't happen. It's not that it doesn't happen. It's just the distribution of it looks so different. And maybe, ladies, in some way, good, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think sometimes people anticipate and expect that, their belly got a little bit larger. But they also don't see that, remember, men are carrying body fat in a different place. So sometimes what we see on the outside isn't always what we see. Ladies are carrying that fat all through under the skin, right? Subcutaneous fat. But then they're also carrying fat deep in their body at the same time when we start to see that shifting. So you can start to see visceral fat numbers rise. You can start to see it in different places, so it's getting puffier. Versus men typically will always still gain that weight in the same place, but they also are gaining weight viscerally, which is not something that you see under the skin. Their scale can be changing and they're getting larger, but the thing is, their fat is also accumulating in a different place. And so you don't notice it the same, but their health will be declining even faster because they get visceral fat, which is why you'll have men with more high blood pressure, crazy levels, high cholesterol, that type of thing. But as women hit this stage, this is when you also can see yours skyrocket like theirs do. And these are the things that then can cause you to gain even more weight, or the appearance of it is more startling to you because now it's in places like them. All right. And so this is why that body fat in our training, which we're going to talk about in a second, matters so much. All right. The other part is this is when you also can see bone density problems. Now, for many of you, I think for many people, it's a newer topic around bone density. But because it's my profession, but I've worked with, much older clients for a very long time, you get to see the range between young to old on how bone density and body fat really matters when you get older. And it is a quality of life issue. And you want to make sure that you're not on the bad end of that, because I have seen that other side of what it looks like when bone density or muscle mass is too low, and how that can really impact you when you get, 65 plus. Everything that we're doing right now and talking about is how to make it through this stage, but also how to make sure you can coast into some of those older years and feeling fantastic. But bone density is tricky because you're not always paying attention to it. But the only way to improve bone density is weight bearing exercises. You have to lift weights, but you need to bear on your body. It means there's some point you need to be doing things where you are standing, moving. Weight is, you have to pull, right? Things that you can push, pull, things that are heavy enough where your bones, right, have to do their job and your muscles have to do their job. All right. And some of you may say, well, I'm working out, I'm lifting, I'm doing things, but you're not doing weight bearing things. For some of you, it could be a lot more body weight. Those of you who do a lot more calisthenics, that is weight bearing, where you are putting pressure on all of your bones and they have to do their job. And so that's important. But of course, think about that. More people who do calisthenics, they are typically very weight managed. They're typically much leaner individuals. People who strength train, that is not always about a smaller body, but a fitter, tighter, strong body with better bones. Those of you who are on the smaller side, it's super important that you do weight bearing, not just I am using my muscles, or I say I'm swimming, or I went to Zumba, or, I just did little small weights. No. And especially for people who are smaller boned, you will have the propensity to lose more bone mass because you don't have as much to lose in the first place. This is the one time where we can say it is not equal. And, sometimes most times we can say, well, it's relative, to the body. No, this is the time when we can say, no, it's not. Smaller individuals, it is very important that you don't let, yourself not do weight bearing exercises or not strength train, because your ability to be fragile is much higher than someone else's who is a bigger body. Okay. Because we're walking around with more weight to pull in the first place. So you have to be very mindful, but these are the things that can change how your body starts to function as well, and why you can see, again, weight distribution be very different and the comfort level. The other part is, now what happens when, when we don't do those things, okay? Higher levels of body fat, what does that turn into? This is where disease prevention, because higher levels of body fat also translate to high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes. And it also can translate to stomach cancers, digestive concerns, but also cancer in general. And this is where it's super important that we create that plan for ourselves, right? The other part of that is when we don't do enough weight-bearing exercises and we aren't strength training, sarcopenia. Now, it's something that I think you don't hear as much about, because it's like, what, does that exist? But it does. And when it happens, it's a scary thing, because it means that you have losing strength at a dramatic rate. And it means that your muscle mass is so low in comparison to the rest of your body. That's a tough place to be, because it means that you're physically much weaker than you should be. And it means that your energy levels are going to be low as well, right? Because remember, people who have more muscle create more energy. We typically are going to have better mood, better everything. We are not as tired because we have more energy to put out. But when we mess around and we let that get too low, it means you can't pick up normal things. You think about the things that you want to do. You can't open a normal jar. You want to move a pot, your plant, can't pick it up because you're not strong enough. And these things, again, create metabolic problems when you don't have enough muscle mass. It makes it very hard to manage cholesterol when you don't have enough muscle mass. It makes it very hard to manage diabetes when you don't have enough muscle mass. So these are the things that are very, very important, but it's also very difficult to manage weight, because you don't have the burning. You don't have enough of the things that will help you metabolize and use energy. And then you don't have enough to put out. So there's a double-edged sword on what happens when you don't have both. And so it's super important. And remember, these things that we're talking about is the structure of your body. And these things matter in the scheme of things to help you manage your health, manage your weight, but manage your quality of life. So when we think about, oh my goodness, this stage of life just turned into like a disaster and I can't manage my weight anymore, I want you to look at all of the pieces of your puzzle and pay attention to where you might be missing it. Is it lack of a strength training program? Is it lack of an eating routine? Is it that you're chronically dieting and chronically fatigued? Are you exercising, but you're not lifting any weights? Are you doing things to help with your bone mass? And sometimes the bone mass can be tricky. It's like, well, what do I do? Again, weight-bearing exercises. Other things are jumping, even just jumping rope, because you have the pressure. Your bones have to do something to help you. This is also why jumping on a box, this is why you'll see that incorporated in many training programs, because jumping creates the bounce. It creates the need for your bones to be stronger to absorb. So that's why it's important that you are always still able to do it as we get older, that you can still jump. Now, the box may not be as high, right? But the longer that you can still jump, it tells us you have the propensity to have better bones. Some things that you can use at home, or you may see it in a spa sometimes. And I know many of you have probably been on one. It's a power plate. And it's the thing, you turn it on, the plate vibrates. Now, many of you may have used it at a spa and you think it's for lymphatic drainage and cellulite. Believe it or not, a power plate is one of the easiest tools that you can use even at home to help with bone density. Why? Because the vibration forces you to work on stability and it is helping your bones, believe it or not. And so we use that at the facility that I consult at most of the time, where people who have osteoporosis or people who are having bone issues, with safety, of course, that is another way to help them start to improve that bone density. Now, think about what you may be missing. And I cannot wait to hear kind of your thoughts on what you potentially need to do. But understand that the reality of it is, yes, are people gaining weight? 100%. But is the only reason just because of peri and postmenopause? No. We have to look at the entire life. Look at your activity. Decide, have you just literally started moving less? Are you doing exercises that support what you want to do? Are you managing your intake of food, right? Because remember what I said in the very beginning, the amount of food you need, right? Your actual metabolism, what you need for thermogenesis for your body, it is changing because you are changing and you don't always need the same things. And so we got to be mindful. Are we at the right level for where you are today? And then if we actually want to lose weight on top of it, are we at the right level for you to lose weight? Are we actually in a deficit, right? And then have we prioritized the things that you actually need, i.e. protein? I'm gonna go ahead and slide that in there. But think about that. Do you have high blood pressure? Do you already have high cholesterol? What are those things that may be showing themselves? And I'm not gonna say getting in your way, but they kind of like in your way. So what are the things that you need to prioritize to be able to move through this challenge? Okay. Give it some thought. I cannot wait to see your responses, but know that your metabolism is not broken, but it is different. And it doesn't mean that you can't move it. You can, but we have to do things in the right way for you. And that also means being consistent. Ladies, we cannot do things for 60 days and stop. This is a lifestyle and a life that you are creating so that later on you have the best quality of life. And in order for you to see changes, you actually have to change and know that your real life and then your fitness health life are not two separate things. They are one thing, one life. And it is always one life that you are creating and you're doing to make sure that you capitalize on having the best health possible. And being at your best requires the intention. It requires you to be mindful about your food. It's not about being on a diet, but it's having intention around preparation, knowing the right things for you, knowing some of your concerns, knowing what to prioritize, having a strength training regimen, right? That you prioritize, and we don't say, oh, I don't have time. Oh, we all can say we don't have time, but you have to decide, what are you going to do? Having a cardiovascular routine that you're doing consistently, not just for 2 weeks or 1 month and think, oh, it didn't work. It is something you're doing forever. We're creating a life the same way we'll always brush our teeth, the same way you're going to get, your eyebrows done, the same way if you got wax appointments, whatever that is, that's a life you created, and you're going to still do those things. So remember that you can always do these things. All right. So until next time, think about this one. I cannot wait to see your thoughts, and I'll see you in our next chat.